right, so this Monday night we have Jake's Miami Hurricanes facing off against the Indiana Hoosiers in the 2026 National Championship game. Jake, I know you want to, do something real quick.
Gotta throw up the U, man. Gotta support. Gotta
Got to throw
throw
up
it
the
up.
U until you see my prediction. Then you might not be too happy at me, Jake. But we'll see.
Ooh.
I won't be doing that. But let's break it down a little bit. Just quick initial thoughts. I'll start with Jake since he is a Hurricanes fan. I'll throw it to Evan. I'll give my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, in the last game against Ole Miss, obviously very, very great game, Carson Beck with the game-winning rushing touchdown. I think, our defense kind of skipped a beat. They weren't really getting to Trinidad Chamberlain all that much. And some of that was because Trinidad was getting the ball out quick. He's very elusive. Bang and Mexico wasn't really getting to him. They were wreaking havoc on him, forced him into a couple of tough throws. Miami had several drop picks in that game, but overall, I think the offense kind of, picked up the defense's kind of slack a little bit. They scored enough points to win the game. So
Yeah, if I had to, so the spread in this game right now is 7.5. It stayed that consistently for Indiana. If I'm gonna double that. I have Indiana from 14 to 20 points. I think they are so hot right now. You got to stick with Mendoza. That is my official prediction, but good luck to you, my friend Jake. And in honor of you, I'm gonna explain how I think Miami can win this game. It's not gonna be because of Carson Beck. It's not gonna be because of Malachi Tony. It's going to be if your defense plays lights out. I think, and Jake, you actually mentioned that to me that the Indiana's offensive line could be, a little suspect. So I did some digging on that. They allowed, they've had some big sack games. They've allowed some sacks. I think they gave up 5 sacks to Wisconsin, who is by no means, a powerful team. So if Miami is going to win, it's going to come from that defense playing an elite game. Indiana has put up points on pretty much everybody. Who did they not put up points on? They still beat them, but who did they not put up points on? Ohio State. They only put up 13 on Ohio State. Ohio State's the number one defense in the country, statistically. Miami is the number five. So it's going to be a test. Like you said, they did give up some points to Ole Miss, but if Miami is going to win this game, it's going to be because of their defense. But I'm going to stick with Indiana. I think Miami puts up a better game than Oregon and Alabama did, but I'm going to stick to that 14 to 20 point range right now. All right, so I want to really just correct Evan really quick. The spread is 8.5, by the way, not 7.5. I think that's on ESPN Bet or something.
yeah.
Okay, I've been looking at ESPN. Maybe it just moved, or I'm dumb and I didn't realize that. But I thought it was looking at 7.5. But okay, yeah. Okay, so the way that I think Indiana wins this game is, pretty simple. Just do what you've been doing all year. They're 15 and 0, looking to become the first 16 and 0 team in modern history. And then for Miami to win this game, so I don't I I don't disagree with Evan that the defense has to show up, but I think really they have to lean on that offensive line and Mark Fletcher. We saw Miami control the ball for, I believe, 41 plus minutes against Ole Miss, and that really helped out. Um, so I think Miami really has to control the clock here and keep, Mendoza, Charlie Becker, Omar Cooper, Roman Hemby off the field, and just keep the Hoosiers from putting up points. But I do think Indiana wins this game. I'm not going to go 14, 20 points like Evan did. I'm just going to go 10, 34, 24.
34.
Big.
Everyone picking against Miami, but however, you gotta realize that the Hurricanes have, you talk about, and Evan brought this up. You talk about Indiana's offensive line. You talk about, they're being suspect at times. They're giving up big sack games, and pairing that kind of weak offensive line. I don't know if you want to call it weak exactly, but you know they are weak at times. You pair that with two of the fastest edge rushers in college football, and you probably end up with 5 or 6 Miami sacks.
Yeah,
I
I,
do
I
think
just
that is a
I just wanted to add Jordan. I just be curious if I just haven't seen it from the Miami offense to stay on the field like that. They're bad. Carson, and more particularly Carson Beck. Carson Beck played very good, but that was against an Ole Miss defense, as you yourself quoted, Jordan. Choked on the in the biggest moment when they needed to.
it
Um,
is true. It is
uh,
true.
they obviously a great drive for Miami, but to prove it against, I think Indiana's defense is for sure better. We'll see if they could stay on the field that long. That's why I think Miami's defense is the difference maker, at least not on my case. But yeah, what were you saying?
That is true. When you think of Ole Miss, you think of high-powered offense. No disrespect to Ole Miss's defense, but that's just what you think of. But to Jake's point, I think yes, Miami. Obviously, it would help if they get to Mendoza, a few times. But again, I just really think the offensive line is a big key here. I mean, Mario Cristobal, head coach at Miami, played on the offensive line. He knows what that's all about. I'm sure he loves, when the big guys get down and dirty. I don't know if I can throw this term out there, but it's been thrown out several times. The quote unquote big uglies up front, if they can, control that line of scrimmage and open up holes for Mark Fletcher, like I mentioned before, I think Miami could get this done. Another question I have, just really quick, who do you think it, which team do you think has more pressure on them?
Oh, I would say by far Indiana. I mean, at this, if you were to say at the beginning of the playoff, no, because they had little experience, but they're being talked about as maybe being as good as like 2019 LSU and stuff. If they lose this one, yeah, I think by far Indiana has the most pressure.
Yeah, what do you think? I think Indiana has the pressure too. I think that, no one expected Miami to be here. And the fact that Miami is even here playing for the national championship in their hometown, might I add, is amazing on its own. But I think Indiana has the pressure because, everyone is talking about if they're bigger than 2019 LSU, which personally I don't think they are, but we'll save that.
Yeah, no,
Um,
I was just gonna say that is true. Miami is playing in front of their home fans, but if it was like 90% Miami fans, maybe you'd say more pressure from Miami, but I think Indiana's gonna bring a fair amount of fans down there. I think it's gonna be pretty even.
personally think more pressure is on Miami, actually. We know the history of what the University of Miami is. Like Jake mentioned, the game is in Miami, Florida, in front of their home, quote unquote, home fans. Obviously, they don't have a stadium on campus. They have to travel to play at the Dolphins home stadium. But I think because you look at what the preseason odds were, I believe Indiana was 100 to 1 to win the national title. No one expected them to be here. That they might be playing with house money right now. Um, but that's not to say when you get to this point. I mean, obviously you never want to lose a game, period. But I'm just saying, I think more pressure is on Miami right now.
All right, overreaction number one. If Miami wins this game, Carson Beck's a first round draft pick. I think he they will have had to play so amazing that I think and I don't know where he's supposed to go in the draft right now or if he's I don't even know what that status is. But if he wins this game, that's my bold prediction. Carson Beck, first round draft pick. I don't know, maybe to Cleveland or something they trade back in or something. I don't know, but that's my
Yeah,
prediction. Yeah.
I like the way you think of it.
Yeah.
I honestly think he's a first round pick anyway. You look at his size, his build, his arm strength. He can make all the throws in the world. I think he's a first round pick anyway. But we'll have to see come April. What we say doesn't matter. What GMs and owners and all them say matter.